Well, I grew up in a Christian home. I went to church every weekend when I was little, and then I stopped going when my brother did because that's what little sisters do. And it wasn't until 7th grade when I met the band Attaboy. It was Hot Sunday at the time. And I started going to Amos Keeley's youth group, which was College Park Church, and it was a lot of fun, and I fell in love with the people there. When their fall retreat came around, I went, and that was the first time that I heard about the salvation thing in Jesus and what he did for me and my sins, and it made me realize that I wanted to have that in my life, and I wanted to show other people that kind of love. After that, I started repping God and stuff. I told everyone that I love God, and I lived the lifestyle all throughout the rest of middle school. But then high school rolled around, and I started giving into peer pressure and doing the cool things, and I kind of put God on the back burner and left all my Christian friends behind, and just stopped associating myself with that kind of thing.
I grew up going to a church almost every week, and the church that I was in, even though I honestly think that it was a really good church, it just kind of gave me the impression that God was distant and angry and judging. And even at a young age, I can remember thinking that that's not what I thought God was, and I just always had an image of God that was more loving and nurturing. And my 7th grade year, I was invited to a movie night at College Park, and I just really, really liked the atmosphere and everyone there. And eventually, I asked my parents if we could start going there, and they said yes because they knew that it was something that I really wanted. And so we began going to College Park, and also on the fall retreat there, it was the first time that I gave my life to Christ when the speaker was talking about how when you experience God, He'll change your life even if you don't realize right away. And I just started to realize that my life had been changed and my perspective had completely changed on how I viewed things, and I began to see how God was working in my life and how He was forming me into who He wanted me to be.
What I thought Christianity was basically praying when you did something bad, or when you're with a big group of family, for Easter or something, that's when you prayed. And then I didn't really think it was anything beyond that. Mm-hmm. And so pretty much through elementary school and middle school, I didn't really live for God. I just lived like I wanted to. And then sophomore year, Sarah Homme and Taylor Hippensteel asked me to come to a youth group event called Mud Fest, which was basically just a huge mud party, mud volleyball, fun stuff like that. And I was a little apprehensive to go at first because things with God kind of made me uncomfortable. But I went and I had a really good time, so I decided to go back. And then I kept going back because I really enjoyed it. They didn't get too serious, and we had a lot of fun activities. But then the youth pastor, Kevin Whitaker, asked me to go on a mission trip to West Virginia. And I really didn't want to at first because I felt like that was too much too quick, but he kind of persuaded me to go. He told me I wouldn't have to pay for the trip and that they were whitewater rafting. When we got into West Virginia, the first thing we did was we went to a place called Crossroads, which was a soup kitchen type thing for homeless people that lived in West Virginia. And Taryn Bunch, Ryan Burson, and I went there, and we helped serve them food. And then after we were done serving them, we got our own plates and we went and sat with them and had conversations with them. And I remember Taryn and I talking to this couple that had just sold their wedding rings because they needed to get by. And I remember thinking that I was pretty selfish, thinking that I was the only one with problems, and that the littlest thing I would get upset about, and these people were praising God even in the fact that they didn't have a home, but that they were still together. They said that the wedding rings didn't matter because they were together, and that's what marriage really was. And so, I mean, they kind of made me think of others, and which is something I really had a problem with. I was kind of selfish, and it was me first all the time. But the rest of the trip, I had a more group-centered attitude. The following night, we had a big group. Michael Cooley was supposed to lead small group type thing. He was supposed to teach us a lesson, and it ended up he started telling his story, which led to other people confessing things that they had done. And I was sitting in there thinking, this is the most awkward thing in the world, and I want to leave right now, because I didn't really know these people that well, and they were confessing like really deep things, and it was making me uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden I remember just start talking, and I didn't know why, and I just started confessing things that I'd never told anyone else. And that's the first time I really felt God moving in me. Like, I made an honest effort to make sure that the rest of my life would be to show God, to show Jesus through my actions. And when we got back to West Virginia, or back to Huntington, it was pretty easy because I stayed with that same group of people, and we hung out all the time over the summer. And like, I started learning more about God and what I wanted to be, like how I wanted to show Him. But then school started again, and I found it a lot harder to be around my non-Christian friends or the people who aren't really serious about their faith. And I started kind of falling back into my old ways of like laziness and not really caring. And I just found it difficult to converse or show my opinions when people were doing things that weren't really Christ-like. And that's something I've been trying to work on.
Last summer at Operation Backyard, we had a really cool speaker, and he like basically just talked about how we should break the rules of like what is cool and like do the different thing and like follow God. And so that weekend I realized that I wanted God back in my life, and that like I wouldn't be truly happy, like I wasn't able to be truly happy without Him. And so I decided to ask God back in my heart again, and I decided to get baptized so that I could like be forgiven for all the bad things I had done, and so that I could like get a fresh start with God. So
I got really involved with campus life at Riverview and student leaders, and then that led into high school, where I continued to be involved in all those things. And I think high school got a lot harder just to follow through with things because it was a lot busier and it was just different. So it was harder for me to like stay connected with my personal time with God, and so that was always a struggle for me, just to make time for God and figure that out. But eventually, like, I started to figure out that even when like I left God, He wasn't leaving me, so I could always come back to Him and figure out what I needed to do in order to continue to grow with Him. I think that for me, like, I rely a lot on other people and like their encouragement, so I think that accountability is really important for me to stay with Christ, so that I have someone with me, like telling me that this is what I should be doing, and just getting that encouragement from other people.
Grace, I'm hoping, will like shape me into the Christian I want to be, and I'm hoping like through Grace I can like reach out to people who don't really have a relationship with Christ and are scared of it, and see the church as something that is like condescending and like, I don't know. And I just want to show them that like through my actions and through my love that Christ loves them too.